Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, to hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we at, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here and stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome back. Thursday. Things are moving quickly. A ton. Too much to get to today. We are taking Monday off. Boom. I'll mention it again tomorrow, but we are taking Monday off. Necessities due to changes around the show. We'll get to those when they're all completed. But there's just so much. There's so much to get to. I mean, we had to push so much out and move it along because, I mean, look, it's a big day. It's a big day for Trump. It's a big day for other countries. It's a big day for your wallet. And I don't mean in a good way necessarily.
And now, after months of extensions and delays, President Trump's sweeping tariffs on dozens of America's trading partners are now in effect. The president celebrated the move overnight on social media, posting, quote, "It's midnight. Billions of dollars in tariffs are now flowing into the United States." Most imports into the U.S. will now face a baseline 10% duty, with the overall average rate rising to more than 17%. That's the highest level in nearly a century. Some of the highest rates are imposed on goods from countries like Brazil, Syria, Switzerland, and Iraq. When it comes to our country's largest trading partners, talks continue with China and Mexico, while Canada remains under a 35% tariff that went into effect late last week.
Okay. The tariffs went into effect. All right. This is the result of Liberation Day, right? April 2nd, he announced this, started with the 10% across the board. And depending on who came to the table and who didn't, who bent the knee, who came to the negotiating table with Mr. Dealmaker and who did not, that now determines where your tariffs are now. But 90 countries are feeling the tariffs now. 90 countries. Many of them, many of the smaller ones, are at that 10 to 15% range. Many of the smaller ones, more inconsequential. Some of them, few, but some of the smaller countries have come to the negotiating table to even alleviate that. But not everybody's coming to the table. Not everybody's coming to the table, and we're going to get to that. Now, up to this point, the tariffs have raised, through July, roughly $152 billion for the U.S. Treasury. Okay, keep that in mind. For the U.S. Treasury, the CPB collects these tariffs for the U.S. Treasury. But the effect is just about to take hold. And some people out there are like, you keep telling me about this effect, but I'm not feeling it just yet. I'm not feeling it just yet. Oh, you will. You will. He's going to point to that revenue right there and say it's working. The markets, your wallet, they tell a different story, and they certainly will tell a different story going forward, okay? A number of growing businesses have warned recently, and this is I'm gonna refer to a lot of New York Times reporting in terms of these tariff stories, and this is what I'm going to right now is New York Times. But a number of growing businesses have warned recently that they may no longer be able to absorb the rising cost of imported components and supplies. As a result, the prices have started to climb. We talked about that 2 days ago. We're going to talk about it a little bit more today. Maybe not quite as in depth in individual products as we did last time, but we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. The economy has grown, but only at an anemic pace. Okay, it was supposed to be, look, the tax cuts for the billionaires, that's supposed to be a boom for the U.S. economy. On top of these tariffs, it should be skyrocketing. No. The growth, anemic. The inflation, that is rising. Prices, going up. They are rising. Okay? They are rising. You know, Mexico, they've had it suspended. One of our biggest trading partners, a very important trading partner with the U.S., they've suspended those tariffs. The suspension's due for another maybe 75 days, something like that, somewhere around there. They've been extended to come to the table. Not Canada. Yeah, it started at 90. It was a couple weeks ago. But Canada, no, they've pushed back a little bit too much. They don't want to come to the table and bend the knee like Trump demands. And they're looking at 35% across the board, but they supply certain commodities that are much higher than that, and we'll get to that as well. They are suppliers of stuff that has gone to higher across-the-board tax rates for individual particular commodities. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. And experts are looking at somewhere around $2,400 less per household at the end of the year due to these tariffs. You're going to have $2,400 less spending power. You, the American public. Not the countries they're tariffing. You. I know a lot of you understand tariffs. I know a lot of you do. But I also know that I have a lot of middle and even right-leaning viewers. I've heard from them. I know they exist. Welcome. Hello. And for some of them, maybe they're not getting the right information on Fox or Newsmax or NewsNation or OAN. Maybe they're not. Or maybe they're just not looking for it. Maybe they're just trusting that Trump has their best interests in heart. Why would he hurt the country? Why would he hurt my wallet? Put him in office. Why would he do that? Just so we're clear. Let's take one example. Okay, let's take one example. Let's say we're buying, an importer wants to buy $1 million worth of shoes from Vietnam. Vietnam right now is facing a 25% tariff. That means the importer, not the exporter, the importer now has to pay $1.25 million for those very same shoes. They have a choice. They got a choice. They could either raise the price, make you pay more. They could absorb the tariff and take a gigantic hit in their profits. Who's taking hits in their profit? Just in the last quarter alone, Toyota, $3 billion loss. Volkswagen, $1.5 billion loss. GM, $1 billion loss. Major companies totaling about $12 billion. Just in the examples I gave you, this last quarter alone, we're talking May to August, just this last quarter, $12 billion in losses from some of our biggest companies. So they could absorb the tariff. They could. They won't. And those who have will not continue. That's a promise. That's not some grand, declaration by me. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not looking into the future and coming up with something exciting and you hadn't considered. No, they're going to raise the prices. They're not going to absorb these tariffs. They could negotiate with the exporter for lower prices. They could do that. Why would the exporter do that? They're not taking the loss. They've got profit margins to think about as well. Why would they care? Why would a Vietnam shoe manufacturer give a crap that you have $2,400 less to spend? They got a business to run. Or they could switch suppliers altogether, which that's a viable option, right? If there's two shoe manufacturers in Vietnam producing the same quality and likeness of shoes, competing shoe brands, and Brand A is charging you $1 million, which you pay $1.25 on. Brand B might say, okay, we'll take it down to $950,000 for those shoes and give you just that much more reason to go through them. They could do that. But the mitigation of these, of the loss there, minimal. And again, as I explained, it goes to the CPB, these tariffs. That $250,000 in tariffs that you spent on those shoes, it goes to the CPB, which then funds the Treasury. Okay? You're paying them. They will not absorb. That's a promise. It's a promise. Let's hear from Scott Besson about this. He gets grilled and doesn't really handle it well. And I do like this clip. Scotty loved this clip. This guy, Eugene Robinson, thank you. Eugene Robinson. He holds Besson's hand and walks him down the path of reality, of reason. And Besson has a hard time with it.
There has been some confusion. So we've got a tariff of, 50% on Brazil now, I think. And so if someone here, an importer, wants to buy Brazilian products today or tomorrow and import them, they're going to pay 50% to the Treasury. And so who writes that check?
Well, it couple of things. First, we could have substitutions, so there's very little that only comes from Brazil. It could come from Argentina, it could come from...
right, but assuming it does come from Brazil, say, or it comes from any country with a tariff, who writes the check to the Treasury?
Well, the check is written to the person who receives it at the dock in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. The check is written by the person who receives it at the dock. So the tariff is paid in this country by the importer, is that right?
But the Brazilian exporter could decide that they want to keep market share. They could lower their price so that the full 50% of the tariff, say, and
right, they can eat part of the cost. They can eat part of the tariff,
which is what we've seen.
Okay. But the check is written by the importer, right, at the dock.
Yeah, and then the importer can pass it on or not.
Yeah, a unicorn could fly in with bags of gold he found at the end of the rainbow and drop it off to the importer to help pay those taxes too. Those tariffs. That's about as likely as Brazil lowering all their prices to try to match a 50% tariff. Besant is in dreamland. That's fantasy. He is trying to mitigate the obvious and clear loss. He's trying to mitigate this insane 50% against Brazil. He's trying to explain it away with fantasy. No, it's not that bad. Yeah, you're right. The importer does pay the tariff and will raise the prices, but Brazil could lower his prices, right?
I feel that that clip's going to get him in trouble later, maybe, because usually in the Trump administration, when you're presented with facts and kind of like a dead end, you're supposed to flip it and be you're supposed to spin it and then attack yeah, but you got to understand during the Biden administration, and you're clear. In this one, he actually admitted, the importer pays for it.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've ever heard anybody from this administration mention that the importer pays for it.
And, and Scott, that's not the first time Besant has been caught off guard, fumphering, not really understanding how to answer this question in true Trumpian fashion. His spin game is weak. It's weak. I totally agree with you. There's a lot of words he could have used to get around saying, yes, the importer pays the tax and passes it along to you. He could have said a lot of things. Instead, he admitted, like you said, yeah, the importer pays it, and then went straight to fantasy land. Well, Brazil could lower its prices. That's not the right message. And don't forget why Brazil's paying 50%. A lot of these countries, now there are some major exporters that are facing much higher than the 10 to 15% blanket tariff. We mentioned Brazil, 50%. We're going to talk about India, 50%, Syria, 41, Laos, 40, Myanmar, 40, Switzerland, 39, Canada, 35, I mentioned that, Iraq, 35, Serbia, 35, and Algeria, 30. Okay, so some of these major exporters are seeing a much higher. These are the countries that didn't come to the table. These are the countries that didn't bend the knee. They had since April 2nd to come and kiss Trump's ass and negotiate a deal that works for Trump, but they didn't. And in Brazil's case, they are prosecuting his buddy, Bolsonaro. Authoritarian wannabe Bolsonaro who didn't want to leave office, subverted their laws, their rule of law to try to stay in office by a number of illegal means, caught, prosecuted. Trump don't like it, 50%, just like that. That is how arbitrary, that is how personal, that is how petty the President of the United States is being with something like a giant tariff war. Petty, short-sighted. Because Bolsonaro's getting prosecuted because your buddy is getting held to account in his own country by his own people. A 50% tariff on Brazil, insane, petty, ridiculous.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett breaks things because someone has to.
Everybody's trying to figure out what's really going on. Everyone's a little worried about whether the numbers are even going to be real in the future. What do you think?
Well, I think we're kind of driving the car with 2 feet. 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake. On the gas, we've got good tax policy that's pro-growth. We've got regulatory relief coming. And we've got this AI boom that's going to be great for productivity. On the brake, tariff uncertainty, and a debt crisis on the horizon, which is going to mess with interest rates. So I think all of that combustible mixture is giving people cause for concern.
Holy crap. Now, you remember him. That's Eddie Munster himself telling you, well, we telling you, he's telling you, we got this great tax cut. We got this great tax cut, and this is ruining it. And then on the back end, he says, we're facing this debt crisis. You son of a bitch. Of course you're for the tax cut to the rich. You were the Speaker of the House the first time Trump did this massive tax cut. The cuts that we'd made permanent this time around in the one big beautiful bill you facilitated as Speaker of the House in his first term. Yeah, you're for it. Yeah, you're for it. But then you got the balls to talk about we're facing a debt crisis. It's your tax cut for the billionaires that gave us this debt crisis, Paul. Yeah, we haven't seen him in a while. Dude, he has been non-communicado for quite some time. He ran from the spotlight when he retired. He retired young. He got out, and yeah, he deuced it out. Peace. Have fun, Don. Have fun, America, with Don. And now we hear from him now talking about this great tax cut is going to get all messed up by this tariff war. It doesn't make any sense, and we're facing this debt crisis. You son of a bitch. He continues.
They justified tariffs based on trade deficits. I don't think that's the way to go, but then they threw a tariff on Brazil at 50%, and we have a trade surplus with Brazil. So there's no sort of rationale for this other than, just the president wanting to raise tariffs based upon his whims, his opinions. And so I think choppy waters are ahead.
Boy, it's so funny how these dudes tell the truth if you can discern it through the bullcrap. Some people are a little more outward about telling the truth about Trump when they leave, right? Like the Cohens and the Barrs and certain other ones, the Boltons, when they leave the government, they're a little more honest about it, right? They're a little more upfront, discernible. But then you've got the Paul Ryans who are a little more coded, but he's telling the truth. It doesn't make sense. You've got tariffs based on Trump's whims. He would never say that if he was still part of this administration. That's a promise. If he was still, majority House leader, Speaker of the House, if he was still Speaker of the House, he would never say something like that. But there he is. These tariffs are based on Trump's whims. Yeah, they are. They are based on Trump's insane, declining whims.
Could you imagine Mike Johnson saying that?
Oh, no. Oh, imagine Mike Johnson saying that. I could see Mike Johnson showing up to that interview, knocking the camera over, and starting a fight with Paul Ryan. What did you just say? I'm going to bring down the righteous wrath. He would fight Paul Ryan over that. No, he wouldn't say that. No, he knows how precarious his job is. He knows the assignment. He knows what he was hired to do. Come on. No, Mike Johnson's not saying that. But there is somebody who's gotten a little more comfortable, although his position on that bill to stop the market trading, the trading by congressmen, his position on that's pretty despicable. But earlier, in terms of the Iran bombing and some other things, Rand has come out publicly saying, I don't agree with Trump's policies. He's been getting comfortable doing that. Is he gearing up for a run? Is he gearing up, for a run at the Republican nomination for president? Maybe. Maybe. They love him in Kentucky. They love this dude in Kentucky. But Rand Paul had something to say about this, and this one concerns Canada specifically.
I have a full screen of 10 brands of Kentucky bourbon. This is going to be a good ad for your home state. Now, you know me, I haven't had a drink in over 30 years, so it doesn't really trouble me very much. But we haven't had that retaliation yet, Senator Paul. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Well, it's fighting words when you come after Kentucky bourbon, Larry. I mean, that's just not right, and it really rankles us here in Kentucky, and it is. I mean, Canada has retaliated. Not only do they have tariffs, retaliatory tariffs on bourbon, they also just, in some ways, are just mad enough to take it off the shelves. We have Canadian store owners, we got Canadians booing us and booing the national anthem at hockey games and taking our bourbon off shelves. Just not a good idea. I mean, we have great trade with Canada, and to disrupt the trade with Canada and Mexico isn't good for anyone. It certainly isn't going to be good for our economy.
Well, it's not exactly a controversial take out of Rand. Like, obviously a trade war with Canada and Mexico is a bad thing. The only one who doesn't realize that is Don. Not too controversial, right? Rand coming out and saying the obvious thing and defending his uniquely Kentucky, product, the bourbon. Yeah, okay. He's representing his state, talking about this is not good. No, well, yeah, Rand, it's not good. What are you prepared to do about it? No, it's not good. He does continue, and he says something a little more interesting in this clip. He does say something a little more interesting here.
But what if we don't see that? I mean, you have a point about the whiskey retaliation. You have a point. It's an important point. But that's pretty rare. The retaliation part of this story has been very rare. And in truth, we showed the tariff effects, front page of the Wall Street Journal, their story. The tariff effects billions in revenue, but no economic earthquake. I mean, we haven't had a tariff recession. We haven't had a tariff inflation.
Yeah, but I guess the question I would ask you, Larry, is they're bragging that they think they can bring in $2 trillion in revenue over 10 years. If someone came to you and said, hey, Larry, I've got this great idea for a value-added tax. It'll bring in $2 trillion over the next 10 years. You'd shake your head and say, we don't want to be Europeans. We're not for that. And we've never been for adding a sales tax without removing some other tax. So people all the time say, oh, we're going to get rid of the income tax. Sure, present that to me, and I'm for getting rid of the income tax in exchange for a tariff. But that's not what we're getting. We're getting $2 trillion in taxes on top of all the other taxes that we have. So ultimately, conservatives have to decide, do they like taxes because they're Donald Trump's taxes, or do we still say that we don't want more revenue coming out of the productive economy and going to government, that we want to balance the budget through reducing spending, not increasing taxes? That's still a fundamental question.
Now, there he is making some sense. Because effectively you pay this, right? You might as well just call it a tax, right? It's tariffs because it involves the exporters and importers. But for you, effectively, it's just another tax. It's just another tax. And he's saying, do you want another tax on top of all your taxes? Especially you states that have state tax. So you got income tax, on already existing sales tax, state tax. Now you want another Trump whim tariff tax on top of that? And he's asking the people on the right now, don't ask MAGA, okay? Don't ask MAGA if they care. They don't care about anything, except Epstein, apparently. But they don't care, right? They're the ones that are going to buy the Trump Bible, the gaudy gold shoes, the ridiculous watches, the action figures, give to his PACs, give to the wall fund, have Bannon steal that. Give to his campaigns. They'll give and they'll give, they'll give and they'll give and they'll give. They don't care. It is a tangible sign of their fealty to their dear leader. If they don't care about the Constitution getting crapped on, they won't care about this. Okay? They just won't. Republicans, though. Republicans. Independents. How do you feel about this? Are you okay with this extra tax on you just to prove you were right in some way? Just to say I don't have regrets for voting for him? This is another thing you're going to have to file under. I'm going to have to eat this because I don't want to admit I was wrong about this guy. This one's going to hit your wallet. It's not the culture war. It's not kitty litter in the classroom. It's not a war on transgender. We're not talking about a man playing volleyball with the females. Not something that you can just point your finger to and say things about that won't affect your life. This one's going to affect your life. He's not asking you to buy the Bible. He's not asking you to buy the shoes. He's telling you, pay me based on my whims. So, Republicans, is this going to be another thing that you're willing to just say, he's got the country's best interest in mind. He represents my values. I feel like he's the best choice. So this is yet another slight. File that right under taking away your Medicare and Medicaid, grandma getting kicked out of her nursing home, your uncle getting kicked off his disability. File it right under that one. If you could get past the one big beautiful bill screwing you over, you can get past this, right? You're going to have to. That's what Rand Paul's telling you. You're going to have to. Time to look in the mirror.
Of course, I just hope when they watch these shows, I watch his names because they just make them better known. Nobody knows who they are. But I watched this group of people on CNN and MSDNC do the same thing, where they say, well, costs have gone up. Costs haven't gone up, they've gone down. I'm telling you, the thing that's gone up is stock prices, and success of our country. Our country is really, really doing well, successful.
He's saying costs have gone down. All right, that's what he's going to argue in the face of all this. This is the best you're going to get from Trump is a half-truth. That's the best you're going to get is a half-truth. Because it is true, certain things have gone down since he took office. Certain things have. Gas prices are down roughly 12% each month since he took office. Now, he's going to go out there and say, oh, it's about $2, just under $2 a gallon. That's a lie. That's a lie. But gas prices have gone down slightly. Oil prices have also dropped about 15% since he took office. Well done, Don. He also ran on egg prices, right? That was a big deal. This one he gets to take credit for, but he had nothing to do with this. He had nothing to do with this. See, we had an avian flu, and it devastated the farm industry and drove prices way up. And since the avian flu has subsided, the egg prices have come back down. And between May and June, egg prices are down about 10.8%. Great. There you go. Nice and fair. But overall inflation, since he's taken office, has risen almost 3%. It's risen almost 3%. Okay? And the drops in prices he is talking about, they are very, very specific. Overall, most things are going up. Overall, most groceries are going up. Overall, products coming from overseas, especially Asia, are going up. They're going up. We talked about it. Smartphones, things like that, laptops. We talked about some of the food prices. We've talked about it. Most stuff is going up. Those things I mentioned, they're going down. Fine. Fine, Don. Now, we talked about Brazil getting that 50%. There's only one other country getting hit with 50%. And this one is troublesome. This one involves a country that has just recently passed China in overall population, one of our strongest trading partners traditionally in the region, and a major global player in exports. We're talking about India. We're talking about India. So we're going to get into what he's doing with India. India didn't play ball. India didn't bend the knee. Other countries did. Other major countries did. The EU did. Japan did. Vietnam did. Certain countries played ball, and they are seeing lower tariffs. Other countries have pissed him off, and due to his whims, are seeing massive tariffs, like Brazil, like Canada, and like India. But man, India, we lean on India quite a bit for their exports. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to get into some of the things that are going to see massive price hikes. Crucial industries, crucial commodities, and exports we get from India, a major player.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
Some breaking news on trade this morning, just crossing the wires. The White House says an additional 25% tariff will now be imposed on India. That brings the total tariff to 50%. All of that due to what the White House calls Russian oil purchases on behalf of India. We'll get some more details as we get to them. But we mentioned earlier with Jim, David, that the relation between the U.S. and India has become a little more fraught, because India is in a position where they're saying, you don't need to dictate to us where we buy our energy. And clearly we're trying to put some leverage on Putin and Russia.
Yeah. We have not chosen to do the same to China, of course, which is also a big buyer of Russian oil.
Yeah. So now India's getting hit with a 50%. It's Brazil and India. They are the two top targets of these tariffs, 50% on each of them, for different reasons. And this is really sad. It really is sad because we were on a very positive trajectory with India, okay? We were on a very positive path economically with India. They are burgeoning. They're a major global economic power at this point. They are a fairly stable democracy as well. One of our biggest democratic allies in the world, and they're nuclear. Don't forget that. So it had been a pretty good relationship. Even, a meeting with Trump at the White House in February. India's prime minister was there. His name's Narendra Modi. And he described India's intention to become one of the world's most advanced economies with U.S. partnership. That's what they talked about. He even went so far to say, quote, in the language of America, it's make India great again, MAGA, he said. When America and India work together, this MAGA plus MEGA becomes a mega partnership for prosperity, which Trump smiled at. And indeed, just last year alone, the trade between India and the United States was worth roughly $130 billion. Not bad. Not bad. But right around July 30th, the attacks began. And Trump declared that India's economy was dead. Just out of nowhere. Your economy's dead. That kicked it off. Okay, that kicked it off. 25% extra. They announced earlier around April 2nd or so, just after that, 25% on India. Now, just before the date of enactment of these tariffs, they leveled an extra 25%. And they gave a very specific reason for it. We're going to hear from somebody that Randy absolutely hated. She used to tell stories about seeing him around the area. Somebody that she really enjoyed running down, Peter Navarro. I know you roadsters remember that name. And she said, once his term is over, and she didn't mean like terming off as like prison term, he's going to have a more influential role in this administration. And she was right. And now we have to hear from this guy.
Products, and it's got high non-tariff barriers, so we can't get our products in. So we send a lot of dollars overseas to India to buy their products in an unfair trade environment. India then uses American dollars to buy Russian oil. Russia then uses those American dollars that come from India to finance its armaments to kill Ukrainians. And then American taxpayers are then called upon to pay for the weapons that have to defend Ukraine against Russian armaments paid for by American dollars that came from India. That's got to stop. That math doesn't work. The president understands the connection between economic security and national security, so that was the bottom line there.
What he just said, is the absolute height of hypocrisy out of this administration. Let me put it in context. He's saying India is using money made by the U.S. India's using U.S. dollars to then buy Russian oil, which Russia is then spending that money on armaments to kill Ukrainians. This is the height of Trumpian hypocrisy. You ran down Ukraine for months, Mr. Trump. You wouldn't call Putin a dictator. You wouldn't even admit that Russia started the war. You then put the onus on Ukraine for not coming to the table and disparaged their government, corrupt. You invited Zelensky to the White House and then had your little bulldog, more like a miniature Doberman, JD, attack Zelensky on his dress, his demeanor, not thanking him. They just jumped him. Just an all-out assault. Zelensky comes to the White House and they assault him verbally on TV for the whole world to see. Then you pull funding. You disparage the funding we had already spent in Ukraine. Then you pull further funding. You then pull your military specialists out of the area. You stop providing missiles and batteries and other logistics. Now, you send this guy out here to say, well, we gotta tariff India 50% because that money's going to killing Ukrainians. Oh, now you care. When you have to justify your bullcrap tariffs, now you care about the Ukrainian people? No, dude. No. Not buying it. I hope there's not one person listening to me or hearing Navarro speak on their own buying that crap. Now you care. Now you want to cite Ukrainian deaths to justify Trump's whims on these tariffs, to justify a 50% tariff with one of our biggest, most influential trading partners. I'm not here for it. By the way, he did go to jail. He did go to jail, and this makes me think. Now, he went to jail on 2 counts, refused to appear for a deposition and refused to provide requested documents to Congress. He spent 4 months in Miami in a low-security prison catering to the elderly, okay? So he did do his 4 months, got out, got a nice cush position, right? He's like the trade advisor. Yeah, he's like the trade and something advisor. Yeah, the economic trade advisor. Got a nice little cush position. You know, it's funny. He got that charge for not showing up to a deposition. What happens when Bill and Hillary decide they're not showing up for this stuff? For the you know, they got subpoenaed, right? They got subpoenaed over the Epstein files. Their depositions are set. There's dates for their deposition. What if Bill or Hillary decide I'm not showing up? Now, Navarro did 4 months. You remember Bannon also got thrown in jail, contempt of court, not showing up for a subpoena. I don't see the Democrats that were subpoenaed doing the same thing, but it could get interesting. It could get interesting. He continues.
To get out the information about the Russia hoax.
Oh, God.
And here's what I want to say. I went to prison, as did Steve Bannon, for defending the Constitution, but there isn't a single person associated with the Russia hoax that's been held accountable. And the list is a long one. It goes Obama, Clinton, FBI Director Comey and other people worked there, like Page and Strzok. It involved the intelligence community and Brennan and Clapper, and the importance of the Durham Annex. The importance of the Durham Annex is that ties it all together and brings also in George Soros and his son Alex and the Open Society Foundation. And this is the most sophisticated political scandal that's ever been engineered. No one's been held accountable. Good for Attorney General Pam Bondi for pursuing that. And the most important thing I can tell you, if people are not held accountable for the Russia hoax, they will do it again. If people are not held accountable...
Oh, God. Okay. Gosh, I can only listen to that for so long. After that little diatribe, he's asked about secondary sanctions. Trump mentions it as well. The secondary sanctions they're referring to, Caitlin Collins asks him about it, is, sanctions on countries that are actively allied with Russia, right? So he asked about that, but he's asked about this India tariff, and then he goes on that diatribe about the Obama hoax. I want to just ask this question. Have they adequately grabbed the right's attention with this Obama treason bullcrap? Like they've banged the drum extensively, and I have my doubts that their base even understands what the hell they're talking about even now. And now you got people like Peter Navarro being asked about tariffs, and he goes on this diatribe. I would love to go out in the street, maybe I'll do it, and just ask Republicans, hey, do you identify as a Republican or MAGA? Yes. Can you explain to me what treason Obama committed? Just explain the situation, cursory, nice and simple, just basically what happened. What are they talking about? I have my doubts that any of them could explain to you what treason these guys are talking about. I know they have a much better grasp on the Epstein situation. That's for damn sure. That one has grabbed their attention. They understand that, right? Do they even understand what the hell this administration is talking about in terms of this hoax? I say no. I say they don't. So we're going to hear from Trump now.
Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance, buys more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours, so let's see what happens over the next.
We're going to see more secondary sanctions.
You're going to see a lot more.
So this is a taste of what's
You're going to see a lot more. You're going
Mr.
to see so
President,
much
you were the driving
secondary sanctions. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about secondary sanctions. Okay, talking about, India's supplying Russia with cash to kill Ukrainians. And there may be secondary sanctions coming for Russian allies. Russia. Why are we talking about Russia all of a sudden? Why are we punishing India for the actions of Russia all of a sudden? Well, yeah, China didn't get hit with a 50% tariff. They are our number one global competitor in exporting. They are our number one global competitor economically. Our number one. Why isn't China being talked about like this? They buy Russian oil. They buy more Russian oil than India does. They have been a much better ally to Russia than India has. It's because they're scared of China. They're scared. He's scared of China. He already lost a trade war to China in his first administration, and China is not scared to retaliate to Trump. That's why.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Yes, Mr. President, have Putin and Zelensky agreed to a summit yet? And where and when would that be? What would that look like?
There's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. The road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a...
How close do you think you...
Okay, so if you want to follow along the logistical path and take things at face value, they're talking about this 50% tariff on India to hurt Russia, right? You want to long game it, go from A to C, skip B, go right to A to C, right? We want to hurt Russia. We want to pressure Russia because they want peace talks. They want a ceasefire. That's what they want. That's what Trump's talking about now. He has had enough of getting slapped in the face, getting noogies, getting wedgied, getting his head stuffed in the toilet and getting a flushie, getting stuffed in the locker by Putin. He's tired of it. He's had enough of the public humiliation at the hands of Vladimir Putin. It's crazy. It's crazy that Ukrainian lives could potentially be saved because Trump's feelings have been hurt in the public's eye. In our view, Trump's feelings have been hurt. He's been slighted, and Ukrainian lives may be saved because of it. Insanity. But yes, they are trying to ramp up peace talks between Ukraine and Russia once again. We've got some reporting out of the New York Times. This one's by Maggie Haberman. You may recognize that name, very established reporter. President Trump doesn't intend to meet with Vladimir Putin of Russia as soon as next week. If he is able to meet with him, it will be the first time the U.S. president and the Russia and Putin have had a sit-down face-to-face in 4 years. It'll be the first time in 4 years. Asked if Russia and Ukraine had agreed to this summit, Trump told the reporters there's a very good prospect that they will. And Putin spokesman Peskov did not respond to a request for comment, but Zelensky appeared to signal that a direct meeting was possible. So at least the Ukrainians are saying, yeah, we could possibly meet. No, the Kremlin isn't on board just yet to say these things publicly, but there is a meeting possibly set, and they are going to go ahead. Okay, quote, it seems that Russia is now more committed to a ceasefire. The pressure on them is working, Mr. Zelensky said in an evening address to the nation. But the main thing is that they do not deceive us or the United States in the details. There's been a lot of Russian deceiving of Don recently. Like that's been a constant theme. Putin deceiving Trump. Constant theme. So they are looking to meet. Levitt, she said in a statement on Wednesday that the Russians have asked for a meeting. The Russians expressed their desire to meet with President Trump, and the president is open to meeting with both President Putin and Zelensky. President Trump wants an end to the brutal war. Now he does. Now. Yeah. Everyone agrees this war must come to a close, and we will work towards that in the days and weeks to come, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. So this is a good thing, okay? Trump's motivations aside, this is a good thing. There's no other way to see this. It is a good thing. Slowly and in a pittance, Trump has resumed a little bit of aid to Ukraine. He okayed $50 million a couple months ago. He has returned the military specialists to working in Ukraine. And we have agreed to aid in some of the more humanitarian aspects of the war. So slowly, our support for Ukraine has ramped up. Slowly, in small ways. And then, of course, there was that deal Trump made to have other European allies buy our Patriot missile batteries and then provide them to Ukraine. So he made a little money on the side, right? We're not just giving them things. We're not just going to give them the Patriot missiles and the batteries. Other European countries like Germany and others are going to buy them from us and then provide them to Ukraine. This is heading in a very clear, if not slow, but clear direction. And maybe secondary sanctions, maybe this 50% tariff on India, maybe it is applying a little bit of pressure on Zelensky. Maybe. But make no mistake about it. Russia is not losing this war. A few years ago, there were reports about, a diminishing supply of Russian soldiers, pulling soldiers out of prison camps, underage soldiers coming from the far reaches of Russia, getting shipped to the front line. We heard stories about Syrian soldiers coming to supplement their soldiers, their army. We know North Korea has supplied soldiers to the Russian army and to their forces and to their efforts, not very effectively, but they have. But it doesn't look like Russia is losing this war, which makes me skeptical about peace talks. It makes me skeptical about the whole process. If Russia's not done advancing, and they are advancing, they are, as we speak, gaining ground in Ukraine. As we speak, they are advancing. If that continues, I don't love, the concessions that Ukraine may be forced to make if a ceasefire was to come about. I don't think there's any doubt that the concessions will be more painful for Ukraine than they will be for Russia. And it will most likely involve Russia keeping a lot, if not all, of the territory that they have claimed and redrawing some borders, which was Russia's whole game, the whole game, to gain Ukrainian territory back for the motherland. That's the whole point of this. The Russian forces, through July, have gained 213 square miles of Ukrainian territory. Eek. That sounds like a big number, doesn't it? It sounds like a big-ass number. It doesn't sound like they're losing. Not even a little bit, to me. To me, it doesn't sound like they're losing. We've talked about the record-breaking drone strikes on Kyiv and other cities. Drone and missile strikes. Pummeling cities, pummeling the civilian population. Trump's got a lot to say about this.
Mr. President, what was the breakthrough today? Did Vladimir Putin make some kind of concession that he hasn't been willing to make before?
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. There are thousands of young people dying, mostly soldiers, but also, missiles being hit into Kiev and other places. But in terms of soldiers, I think Russia's lost over 20,000 since the beginning of the year. 20,000. And I guess the estimate for Ukraine is about 9,000. It's a terrible situation. We want to get it stopped. You know,
is your gut telling you that Trump's just saying numbers? Is your gut telling you that Trump's just kind of stream of consciousness pulling numbers out of the air? The actual figures of the loss since the beginning of the year, it's tough to pinpoint, right? It's fog of war. You've got both sides claiming different numbers, inflating where they need to inflate, decreasing where they need to decrease. I also don't think that he knows the difference between a fatality and a casualty. But from most accounts, the Russian casualties have been somewhere between 100 and 120,000 casualties since the beginning of the year. That 20,000 he's talking about, let's just assume he's talking about this month or last month. Let's just assume that, although that is completely unverified. He's just saying things in true Trumpian fashion, just stream of consciousness, gibberish. You know, it's one thing for this guy to normalize swearing out of the White House, which he did again, by the way, in the White House, dropped a bull bleep. And we've heard him swear. Now you got Ken Martin and some other people out here swearing, Jolanda Jones out here swearing. All of a sudden, all these people are cussing. All right, that's one thing to normalize cussing. And we know he normalized lying from the presidency, as he lied over 30,000 times in his first administration. And I would argue he may have surpassed that already in this administration, and we're just getting started. But now he's normalizing gibberish. Now he's normalizing incoherent gibberish out of the White House. And I know he's normalizing it because when Biden gave us gibberish out of the White House, you all came down on him so hard. You would not let it go about his cognitive decline. And even Tapper's out here writing a book. Tapper, I hope you're keeping notes. I'm waiting for that Trump book. In true Tapper fashion, like we saw with Biden. He is normalizing incoherent gibberish out of the White House. That's dangerous.
Also, yesterday, Brett, we didn't pull the clip, but I am keeping tabs on all these clips. At one point, he was looking for Howard Lutnick, and he was standing right behind him. Again. Just like what he did with Triple H last week, and like he's done about 1 million other times. It's just like, and Howard Lutnick, wherever he's at. Oh, you're right there. Hey, what's up, buddy? Hey.
Yeah, just like he did with Triple H, his best friend, 6'6", 250-pound Triple H that he couldn't find standing 1 foot away from him. He's normalizing mental decline in the White House.
Jake Tapper, hit me up. I got the notes for you, man. I've been saving them for you. Don't worry. I got you.
Scott's been doing extensive research for your book, Jake. Hit us up.
I got you, man. Pro bono.
There better be a damn book coming, Jake. There better be. Son of a bitch. Trump continues.
President, in the past, you said you would know if Putin was tapping you along. What gives you any confidence that he is or isn't doing that this time around?
Can't answer the question yet. I'll tell you in a matter of weeks, maybe less.
That I like. That I like because in that clip, I think he inadvertently acknowledged the truth. The reporter asked him, how do you know Putin's not just tapping you along? I don't know what tapping you along is. I've never heard that phrase. I think she just kind of got flustered.
That's what he said a few weeks ago that Putin was doing.
Oh, is that what he said? Oh, okay. Well, there you go. See, Scotty's got your notes, Tapper. Okay, I don't know what tapping you along is. I don't know what that is, but I assume it means playing him. Okay, that's what I'm going to assume. So she asks, how do you know Putin's not tapping you along? And he says, I don't know. That's not what he's doing. I'll let you know in a week. That's him admitting, yeah, I've been getting played. And it's possible he's trying to play me again. I don't know. Is he playing you? Is Putin playing you, Trump? I don't know. Maybe. We'll find out soon because he has been. He didn't say tapping me along. He never did that. I'm very powerful. I'm bigly. I'm strong. No, he didn't say any of that. He said, yeah, maybe. Maybe he is. All right, let's hear from Lil Marco. He's been the one that's been going to the lame party that the cool kids haven't been showing up to. These peace talks, the summits in Riyadh and other places, the UN. He's been talking to Russian officials and representatives, but none of the cool kids have showed up to any of these parties. It's just Marco and some of the Russian spokespeople. Let's hear from Marco.
Those concessions aren't easy. You have to also sell them to the public back in your country. But I think what I can say is everybody wants the war to end. I think the conditions under which it's supposed to end that's always the hard part in this. But today was a good day, but there's a lot of work I don't want to exaggerate. We still have a ways to go here, but we certainly are closer today than we were yesterday, where we weren't close at all.
Is Ambassador Steve Witkoff, coming back with a ceasefire proposal?
Yes.
It's like a ceasefire on Thursday, a ceasefire on Friday, a ceasefire on Monday. Is that in the cards? Was that discussed at this meeting?
Well, I don't know about timing in terms of that. That's the specific timing of it is not discussed. I think what we have is a better understanding of the conditions under which Russia would be prepared to end the war. We now have to compare that to what the Ukrainians and our European allies, but the Ukrainians primarily, of course, are willing to accept. And what you try to see is how far can you get these two positions closer? How can you get these two positions closer to each other? If we can get what the Ukrainians will accept and what the Russians will accept close enough, then I think there's the opportunity for the president to have a meeting that includes both Putin and Zelensky to try to close this thing out. So we got to get closer in that regard.
So in that answer, he kind of parrots what I just said a little bit ago. He said, we have to figure out what it'll take to have Russia end the war. And then he said, we have to find out what Ukraine will accept. That says it all right there. He didn't say, how can we get Ukraine to end the war? Because they can't. If they could, they would have. He's talking about, what can we get Ukraine to accept? That's the way you should be talking about it. Will Ukraine accept ceding all of the territory that Russia has already taken? And in terms of Russia, can we get them to end the war? What does that mean? Has Russia taken enough to satiate them? Are their beaks wet enough? Have they taken what they can live with?
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.